It is Bones, and let's go ahead and do a really quick custom video. Now this came out because I did make a comment last video where I picked up 2 more of these impulse figures, and somebody had the bright idea to comment that if it would be possible to put the goggles from the impulse figure on the originally released Blue Beetle Ted Cord figure from the 2-pack with Booster Gold. Now at first I was like, you probably could, but the shape of the goggles are a little bit different, so I'm not too sure. And then somebody else commented, and then somebody else, that now it's become a challenge if I could do it or not. So I really wanted to do it. I'm not too good at making like tutorial videos, so if you really want stuff like that, I think Ink Drop Customs does a lot of that. Check his channel out. He does lights and stuff like that. Stuff that I don't get into, but I do like to do, like mods and different little custom details. Also had somebody in the comments saying that the reason you guys customize the McFarlanes is because they're not, they're trash, they're not good enough, so you have to mod them. And I pretty much had to slap them around right away and tell them, look, the reason I customize McFarlanes is because they're always not going to be exactly how everybody wants. So there's always those little details that you could add, for your own preference. And the bigger part of that is all lines customized. Legends, everybody customizes to make figures the way they want. People are adding wired capes, people are adding lights. I mean, it's all up to your imagination how you want to customize figures to your own liking. Now, finally, the way I shut them up was that I said, people are doing it to figures that are $40, $30, and us as McFarlane collectors, we're only spending 20 bucks if we want to customize a figure. So anyways, that's, that doesn't have nothing to do with what we're here to look at. Going back to the fact that I don't really do like show how-to videos. It's just, the main reason is because I start to work on a figure and I just do not stop. I just keep going until I get it the way I want. And a lot of times it's hard to bring out the camera and start recording because I've already like started the process and I just don't, think about filming it. But this time I got a couple of little, shots of footage just so you can see what I'm talking about. I didn't show every detail, but you'll get the gist of what I did. Now, of course, we started off by popping off the head of this poor impulse figure. Really like this figure. Luckily, I have another one to replace him. And we did pop off the hair, which is actually really nice hair. This will be saved, for a future custom. And then I also popped off the lightning bolts from his costume. Now, I started to think when I popped these off, I was never a big fan of how they did Wallace West. It's just, missing something. I mean, it's pretty cool, but it's another thing where I just don't like the way they don't bring your eye to those wings. They're like really, really slender. So I was thinking, what if I were to add these that I'm taking from the impulse figure that I'm not going to use anymore anyway, and mod them to this head. Now, I did do a quick little setup, and it does actually make them look a lot better. Add some red paint. I might end up doing this completely. And of course, now I have modified my figure, but I'm not sure how much these are going for. I could always buy another one to replace this one. But that's one cool thing that came out of this. Okay, so now you have the impulse head, no hair, no wings. And first thing I did was split it right down the middle. Now, whenever you do this, you need like the sharpest blade you could find, preferably a brand new blade. Now, be careful, when messing with blades, but of course, I've been doing this a while. I had to tell that worm that talked about the customizing that I was customizing figures even in DC Universe Classics way before McFarlane. So his argument had no merit, and yeah, he was gone. So we split them down the middle. Now you have 2 sides to work with. Now, the big part of this was that how are you going to keep the eyes because of course the blue Beetle figure, I'm pretty sure, didn't have eyes painted under those yellow orbs that he had. And I kind of knew this already. So what I started thinking was, what if we were to cut out the complete eyes and the lenses and everything from the Impulse figure? So I started cutting it down, you know, chopping down around until I finally ended up with just the lens and just the eyes. But it's really thick because it's part of the head sculpt. So then I started slicing the back of it. Now this is the most precarious part of this. You do not want to cut too far, because if you go into where the clear lens is behind and you cut, you'll remove the skin tone, which I was like really scared of. But eventually I got it to my liking. If I could do this again, I would probably do it better. But for what it was, I'm happy with it. But I got the eyes on their own with the goggles connected. Now it was time to work on the blue Beetle. Now, of course, the blue Beetle had those yellow orbs that are just solid plastic, so I sliced those off, and it left like the blue, you know, just a circular shape. Now, I did want to get a drill bit and start drilling and make like a socket for the lens to slide in there. But I like changed my mind because I was scared to go like too far too fast. So I just got the same, you know, sharp blade. You could use a regular utility blade, and I just started carving like in circular shapes. And what I ended up doing was finally getting through to where now it was just big hollow holes. I'm not sure if I got pictures of that, but it was just two big hollow holes, and I had shaped them out using the blade and removing, you know, all the flakes and everything. And I just kept putting the lenses in there until they started like kind of getting pushed in. I didn't want to do it to where they were just slipping in and out, because it would have looked too loose. But I wanted it to where when you press down in, the sides would, like, you know, conform to the shape of the hole. Now, after a lot of trial and error, I got the left eye in, and then I got the right eye in. Now, once I was satisfied with the shape of them and everything, I went in and glued them. I did just use regular Loctite glue with the gel. This is usually what I use. And put a little bit of glue, started pushing them into the shapes. Now, I was sure that they fit in there before I did this, and make sure they're, you know, lined up. And yeah, once I pushed them in and got them to the depth that I wanted, to where they didn't look too, you know, sticking out, or they didn't look too sunken in, I stopped and I just left it there. Now, once I left it there and I was happy with the results, and I knew that that's where I was going to go with this, I actually put glue in the back, since it was hollow and now the back of the lenses were actually protruding through the back. I put glue in there and then just like squished it down. And I knew that once that hardened, these, you know, goggles were not going to go anywhere. So once I was done with that, the next part was to touch up the paint, because of course it is all raggedy and messed up from where you were carving it, from where the super glue like sticks. I did bring out actually these like little like stick sanders. You get these like at Hobby Lobby or even Harbor Freight, and I like sanded around, you know, just to lighten it up, to not have like a lot of damage that I did to around the eye holes. And when I was satisfied to how flat it got, I knew that that wasn't where I wanted. I did notice that like the lenses got scuffed up from where I had, you know, been touching them and pushing them down. So a trick that you use is, they sell this, and this is actually for nails, but I usually use these on figures. And what it is that you could sand down, you know, start at a rough grit, and then you get down to where it actually says smooth and shine. And what that will do is, when you shine it up, it brings out shine in whatever plastic you're using. So this is a tip that I've never told anybody, but this is what I use sometimes if I want to really smooth out like something where I put epoxy, or some ears that I've cut off and I want to smooth down that area. This is what I use. So I started with just the, I think it's called buffing, and I just went over the lenses, and then I went to the shine part, which is like the finest, I guess, grit of this, and I went back and forth, and yeah, it shined up the lenses to where they didn't have those little scuffs anymore. So another little tip. And then I cleaned it off, wiped it down a little bit, and I was ready to paint. Now, it was kind of tricky because I wanted to get the black all around the mask. I didn't want to go too far, but then I noticed that if I went up a little bit more, like above the ridge of, like to the side of the ridge of the nose, it still looked good and it looked like a cool costume. So I did add that little liberty of just touching up the black paint a little bit higher. And then of course I had to do a little tiny dots of paint on the face just to smooth it out. Add any little color to where now there was like a little gap. With the final touches, I was finally done putting the lenses on the Blue Beetle Ted cord. Now really happy with them. I mean, like I said, it's not perfect, but for just like a spur of the moment custom, it came out pretty nice. Now, of course, he does have, originally I had modified his like little grapnel gun that comes with him because it came connected, and I actually separated like the little Beetle metal part to where you can actually remove it or add it in at your leisure. So that's a cool little accessory that goes with him. Got some shots of him. Really happy. I mean, the only other thing is, well, now I want a regular Blue Beetle that doesn't have these, you know, custom goggles. So that's something I'm going to have to look into myself. But now you guys have learned a lesson. This is what happens when you challenge legends. Do not do it. Keep hunting out there. Keep collecting. Keep customizing. And I will see you on the next one.
Used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.